Hello everybody and welcome back to Misericorde! The last time we left off, Angela was seen chasing after a cat in the bushes, and now we have met or bumped into Margaret and Katherine. But anyway, without further ado, let's just get right into today's episode. There she is. Splendid. Oh, hello Sister Margaret, Sister Katherine. We were looking for you. What luck. I told her to look for you, and I wanted to make sure she did. Margaret has this very amusing idea that I'm a flake. Can you believe it? Anyway, we would like to cordially invite you to the Misericorde this evening. That's sweet. That's right. You have seemed all out of sorts recently, and a little birdie told me that Charity may have indicated that you were welcome. Which you are, as it happens. But you've been in such a state recently. Margaret got it into her head that you were waiting for a more direct invitation. Oh. Which I suggested Katherine extend several days before you even spoke with Charity about it, I should add. Which I don't remember, but I would never accuse Margaret of lying. Hence, would you like to join us in the Misericorde tonight? I am very grateful for the invitation. I hope you don't think I was moping around because of that, although... wonderful. I knew it couldn't have been my fault. Katherine. Margaret? Let her speak. Of course. Did Charity explain what happened after our conversation? There was nothing else mentioned. Oh, well. I looked over my shoulder and peered past a pair of sisters in front of me, just in case Angela was preparing to make another dramatic entrance. Sister Angela may have overheard the two of us speaking unfavorably about her. Is that all? No wonder she didn't say anything about it. Arguments with Angela happen all the time. It's practically passé to mention. No, you don't understand. She was extremely upset. It was horrible. You never forget your first. The first time she caught me in the pantry at night, she dragged me by my ear to the superior's office to wake her up to demand I be punished. Oh dear, now that might be quite extreme. You could at least wait for the superior to wake up, but Angela seems like she has a bit of a short temper. Were you? Of course not. Soup mumbled something about sleep being important and shut the door. Honestly, I think it was meant more for Angela than me. Angela has it in her head that I am responsible for the cat running around the abbey. And she will not stop bothering me about my broken door. It is a bit creaky. I am a busy woman. Besides, I can't work with my hands. So I shouldn't worry about Angela? No. Not in the slightest. I considered expanding my story to include the encounter with Angela that I had just left, but I decided not to pursue that subject further. I was relieved to hear that I had some support in the matter. However, I didn't want to risk continuing to invoke Angela's name, lest she emerge from behind a corner or drop from the ceiling at that very moment. What does one actually do in the Misericorde? Drink. Yes, there's a lot of wine. Is that all? Wine, as I'm sure you're aware, is a staple of life in monasteries. Is it? I really don't know. Though this on its own was not exactly enticing. After all, there was practically an ocean of the stuff just below us. Better wine than we drink usually, to be clear. Wine that's made for the drinking, not just drinking. What? Oh, I see. No, I don't. There's also chess, music, if I'm feeling like breaking out the lute, anyway. We read and talk. It's an oasis of pleasure here in our boring little community. Angela will not be attending tonight, by the way. Well then, I'd be delighted to join you. I'm just wondering if Angela has ever join them in the Misericorde. Splendid. I'm very sorry if you were feeling left out. I assure you I was not, but thank you all the same. You really worry too much, Margaret. Well then, I will see you later. The two excused themselves. Are you surprised that I agreed to attend what sounds plainly like a night of debauchery, gossip, and sin? Well, I suppose I surprised myself too. Although I'm sure you've guessed, I had an ulterior motive. A wine-soaked event would be the perfect opportunity to ask Katherine about poor James. Tongues would be looser than usual, and my questioning might not be under quite such scrutiny. I explained all this to the superior, who pulled me aside after supper to ask if I had fulfilled my promise. The Misericorde? Yes, it seems like the best way for me to talk to Katherine about it. This sounds like a new track. Am I wrong? It seemed natural. And it didn't feel natural at any other point you saw her today. When she was giving you this invitation, perhaps. Margaret was with her. I see. Well, I don't love the prospect, but as long as you get the result we need, I can't stop you. Is there something wrong with the Misericorde? It's a space with explicitly relaxed rules. To be honest, I'm surprised you aren't more vocally opposed. Well, it's a rule unto itself, is it not? I cannot argue with the tradition. I see. You're a stickler, but not a spoilsport. Something like that. I can understand that, I suppose. And I suppose Angela is the spoilsport. The problem is, given that most rules around here are quite lax, the bar is raised a bit higher in there, I think. Angela certainly cares about the rules. Well, she's the prioress, so that's her job. Although she might go a little too far in the other direction for my taste. What is your ideal picture for this place, then? I'd be curious to know. That's a very interesting question. Thank you for asking. The superior swirled the cup she held in her hand and looked off into the middle distance behind me. It would be much the same, truthfully. The buildings wouldn't be in such disrepair. I wouldn't have to suffer such direct insubordination on a regular basis, but I certainly wouldn't rule by the sword. That's the trouble with the Misericorde as it exists now. I have no quarrel with the concept of easement in a dam, but I'm not sure there's much of a dam currently. What do you mean? Children should be expected to have secrets. Really? This is sounding kind of ominous. Towns need inns. The workers in the fields, the lowliest peasants, deserve their holidays. Okay, I get where she's going with this. Precepts must be upheld, but I think they can only be upheld if people are allowed at least the illusion of breaking them. That is surprising to say the least. You disagree then? That's understandable. Well, for one, are we not nuns? Foregoing earthly delights is our strength and purpose, surely. It would seem we have reversed positions here. Flipped the chessboard around the other way, as it were. Oh no, flipping the chessboard again! Well, in my ideal abbey, everyone is content. They do their tasks and enrich their lives and serve as vessels of prayer. And then they're allowed a brief respite, so that they do not become overwhelmed or discouraged by their work. I spent my whole life alone in a cell with work, and not once did I complain. The superior tilted her head in a manner that reminded me of the cat I'd seen Angela chasing earlier that day. Did you never dream of leaving? Was there nothing in your books that you wished you could see for yourself? Never. The writing was enough. You must have a truly vivid imagination. I'm not sure I do. I just never needed anything else. You never sang to yourself, invented little games? Well, I did have a few reading games now that you mention it, but perhaps that is how we arrive at an understanding then. You were perfectly content in the world as you experienced it, but you still needed to come up with something of your own. Something different. That's the ideal purpose of the Misericorde. The tavern, the arena, and so on. I feel like I kind of understand what she's saying with this. It's to keep the people content, I suppose. I mean, that is the whole reason for it. I find that very hard to swallow. Would you say the same of prostitution? The superior made a sneering gesture that took me aback. You are flailing your way out of check here, I'm afraid. There's no need to grasp at such extreme examples. Of course, I don't feel that way about whoring. And don't retort by asking if I find whores beyond redemption then, by the way. I wasn't that wouldn't make any sense. You're quite right. She finished her drink in silent satisfaction. I steamed for a minute. I'm afraid that she was actually entirely correct in her assumption that pivoting the conversation back to scriptural understanding was my intended reply. I find the Misericorde in its current state unseemly. The rules here aren't being followed outside of it, let alone inside it. I worry about what the sisters could be up to in there. It ceases to be an easement if the whole plane is flooded. Well, I'll be careful. I'm sure one night with the others won't utterly corrupt me. I'm so curious now. Would it? See that it doesn't. I suppose it can't hurt for you to experience it for yourself and report back to me exactly how founded my assumptions are. If you're that worried about it, why not just disallow it? It's an expected function of a Benedictine monastery. Besides, I have no interest in making these women respect me less. Would they respect you less if you took it away? Or would they respect you more if you showed that you had that power? I don't think they would. I dare say I'd be the next one found without a head. I shuddered. While I was never completely free from fear, direct confrontation with the reality of my situation still unmoored me. It made me feel like I was being watched. Please don't say such things. I am simply making a point. As I've said before, I must play a very cautious strategy in my position. Speaking of, would you like to play a game? The change of subject was a relief, I must admit. We whittled away some time playing chess. I was not very good at it yet, I must confess. Nonetheless, I appreciated the opportunity to fill my mind with something beyond visions of blood and guts. That is a good thing. But tonight we are going to be in the Misericorde. Oh. Hedwig will be joining us tonight. In my mind, Margaret is always someone that's speaking in a bit of a slower, lazier tone, but I'm afraid I don't really convey that so well. Oh really? Lucky her! We had just left the rectory after the evening meal. There was, apparently, still some time before the Misericorde's door would open. Who is responsible for opening the door, I wonder? I had a little bit of time to while away preparing myself for a night in the lion's den. Don't make such a fuss about it. Why not? We're just happy to have you. Well, I am happy to hear it, but nonetheless, you're making me nervous. We'll have so much fun, such a special occasion, honestly. Special? Well, yes. Isn't this going to be your first time ever going to a social event? Oh, wow. Careful, don't break her. Sorry. I felt like I was about to faint. Moira was completely correct, of course. Never in my life had I ever been to anything more sociable than meals in a rectory, and those had been overwhelming enough on their own. I'm going to do my best to have a good time. That's all that matters. It'll be fun. What are we going to do anyway? I suppose we don't really do anything specific. It's very fluid. We've got chessboard. I think Katherine mentioned that there's music sometimes. I'll bring my lute. You have your own lute? Lute or lute? Now I need to know. Yes, Katherine II gave it to me ages ago. I remember this too. One day I should ask Katherine if she could nick the portative for an evening rather than just disabling it. That could be fun to mess around with. I wish you wouldn't fiddle with the superior's things. It's all in good fun. The soup knows. I'm not so sure. Hedwig, you're getting too nervous again. Moira had seemed so carefree ever since that day she broke down while talking to me in the dormitories. I still remember that day. The day I accused her of having something to do with it. But then again, now thinking back on it, it doesn't mean anything. It might not mean anything. I'm just really speculating a lot. I was jealous of her ability to have that be her one emotional outburst on such a horrible subject. It was as if she'd simply been able to drain the abscess and heal the wound. I wish that I could do the same. Unfortunately, every one of my fears and miseries seemed to linger and fester within each other. If my head was a diseased limb, I'd simply have to lop it off. The sun was just starting to set. I decided to go on a walk in the garden. It was one of the best places for me to clear my head that didn't involve drawing a bath, provided I didn't run into Angela, at least. But what were the odds of that happening again? I was determined to make a real, tangible progress tonight. The superior was right to be frustrated with the lack of momentum. That poor young man had begged me to do something to secure his freedom, and then I had slipped into a dark spell for days. I had been selfish. Was it days already? It wasn't going to be impossible. Things weren't so bad. I even had a clue to follow up on. It would be easy to ask Katherine about the cloak when we'd both had a few cups of wine. There was nothing to worry about. I was genuinely interested, after all. What would I tell Katherine if she asked how I knew about the cloak? That kinda scared me. Hedwig. Oh, hello. I want to show you something. You've gotta come see. Very well. Darcy scurried off around the bend and towards the cloister before I could finish my reply. I hear the crows in the distance. I had to hike up my rope to keep up with her without tripping on the stairs. She was leading me to the dorms, it seemed. Whatever it was she had to show me, I could not guess. Oh, I am sorry about the mess. I lost an important mushroom and I have been turning a place upside down looking for it. She had ushered me into her room in the dormitory. It was a stark contrast from my own. What does she want to show me? There were bits and bobs everywhere. Haphazardly stacked books, bottles of various sizes, both empty and full, little scraps of paper, plants in little pots. Darcy had certainly made the space hers. I have been working on this for a while and I think you might be interested. He was standing in front of a small cauldron that was full of a thin, clear liquid that smelled a bit like wet grass. You have been sick and sad a lot lately. And I thought, well, maybe I can do something about that. Do something? Did you make this for me? It is a little something I am fiddling with. It'll make you feel better, maybe. What's in it? I didn't want to sound rude, of course not, after you had that disgusting sherry too. But I couldn't help but think about what might happen to me if I drank something Darcy had brewed. But Darcy cooks your meals for you. It has some St. John's wort and some sage and some water from the hills. I boiled it all together with some other things as well I forgot. It has mint for flavor though. Mentha? That's right. She ladled some of the liquid into a little bottle. The whole setup was a little precarious. I lunged forward to stop the wobbling cauldron from plummeting to the floor as Darcy knocked it about with her sleeve. Oh, steady on me. Good thing I was here. Anyway, try some. Darcy, is this quite alright? For me? What do you mean? I have a frail constitution and this is very, 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 very light. Do not worry. You think I could drink this without any trouble? If I did it right, it will in fact lessen your troubles. That is very kind of you. I hope I'm not being rude. I just, the Bible often reminds us to remain sober-minded. You are not sober-minded. You are sad a lot and lonely as well. I was very worried while you were not talking much. And I am not very good at talking, so I did not want to butt in while you were saying precious few things. But it still made me sad to see that, so I wondered what I could do to help. This will help you remain sober-minded. The world is strange, and there is much to be said about. Even here, of course. But there is no better way to face the sadness than to be prepared. That is all this is. She held the little vessel out to me. She is such a sweet person. Well, I took it from her and gingerly took a sip. It was surprisingly thick, although it didn't taste as bad as I had imagined. Maybe the mentha helped after all. Darcy beamed at me and took the bottle back from me, filling it up and closing it with a stopper before passing back to me. Some more for later, you fancy? I don't feel any difference. It will take a little bit of time, but I'm sure it will help you relax before tonight. That would be nice. Will you be joining us in the Misericorde as well? Not tonight. I will be busy with other things. The odds were increasing that I would have to deal with Angela in a social setting that night. Why? I don't think so. The idea was not relaxing in the slightest, and actively worked against whatever Darcy's potion might have been doing for me at that very moment. You will have fun. You will feel like a real member of the Abbey after tonight, I reckon. This is not going to be some sort of hazing, is it? Goodness, no! That was the pranks. Right. I got you good. True enough, true enough. She smiled at me once more and then ushered me out of her dorm. I do not mean to rush you, but I have some work to do. Oh, not at all. Thank you for the tincture. I hope it serves you well. I gave a little nod of thanks and hurried out of my room. Or her room, sorry. There was yet some time to while away before it would be appropriate to head to the Misericorde. It would be nice to have some indication of time, aside from the darkness outside. I decided I would hold up in my dorm and calm myself with some reading. A splendid idea, until I realized that I currently had no books in a room save for one. I really should have asked the superior to move my collection out of the cell and into my dormitory. Medea simply wouldn't do for now. I felt a little apologetic. I, of course, still appreciated the gift Katherine had given me by transcribing the play for me, but I was not sure that it was something that would help me feel any less tense at this moment. I needed something like ecclesiate. I'm so sorry. Not a story about a pagan woman murdering her children. Basically, she needs something that will calm herself down. I laid down on the bed and held the little bottle Darcy had given me up in the air. I rotated it in my fingers and stared at it. There were no words on it, but I was still trying to read it, I think. If that makes any sense at all. I could feel the cool glass getting warmer between my fingertips. If I ran my thumb over the cork, I could sense just how much rougher the cork was than a bottle. The longer I did it, the easier it would be to notice the sounds the bottle made as well. The gentle sloshing of the liquid inside, and the way the stopper brushed against my skin. It absorbed me utterly. I wondered if, perhaps, Darcy's concoction was working after all. After several minutes, I was so engrossed in the patterns of light dancing through the dark green bottle that I scarcely had room in my mind to think about anything else. Dark green? Do you ever do that? Feel an object every which way until it feels like everything? I don't have any more of that tincture in me, but I still try from time to time. Lectio Divina, a sacred act of rereading and repeating a single line of scripture over and over until it almost feels meaningless, until the words are just sounds and the letters are just shapes. That is how I spent many of my days and nights in my cell, breaking through all stray thoughts and bypassing all frivolous interpretations of the word, and simply living inside the true meaning of it, reaching understanding through feeling rather than language. For a moment, I was that little bottle. We are getting started in the Misericorde now. I just thought I'd tell you as early as possible, in case you plan on being fashionably late. Coming. The clarity that I had been enjoying burst like a bubble, and I was thrown right back into nervous anticipation. I rose from the bed and did my best to straighten out my robe. While doing so, the tincture fell from my trembling fingers. Oh no, did she drop it on the floor? Please no. Luckily, it didn't shatter. It bounced once, and then rolled around the cold floor, making a cold, twinkling noise. Are you alright in there? Yes, sorry, I just dropped something. I scrambled to pick the bottle up, unsure if it was some contraband I would get in trouble for holding if Katherine, or worse, Angela, saw. Plus, I was so nervous. The tincture now safely in hand, I uncorked it and downed the second dose. It was cool, pleasant, and minty, and I could practically feel myself physically relaxing. It was like the cold concoction was replacing the black bile that ran in my blood with something else. Something much more agreeable. I slapped my own cheeks to bring out some color and shivered all over. I was ready. I opened the door to meet Katherine, who was leaning against the doorframe examining her fingernails. You look significantly less terrible than the first time I collected you like this. I feel quite good, actually. Hold still. She stood up straight and licked her thumb as she had once before. This time I was prepared. She rubbed it against my forehead, undoubtedly attending to some wayward bit of hair poking out from underneath my cap. There we are. Not bad. We'll make a little princess out of you yet. I simply smiled. Katherine turned on her heel and strode out of the dorms, and I followed close behind her into the hall. As we passed the library, the door opened a crack. Is it time already? Indeed it is. Are you coming tonight? Not tonight. I'm very busy. That's a shame. You can tell me all about it next time you're here to chronicle. Have fun. I suddenly remembered something important I had been meaning to ask Eustace. In my miserable stupor, I had completely forgotten to ask her about Darcy's vision. I leaned forward to speak quietly, aware that the others behind me were watching. Still, it wasn't as if Darcy's visions were a secret. Before you go, I was meaning to ask you, did I read some of your notes about Darcy's vision sometime in the near future? No. Oh, no? Really? I'd find them ever so interesting. You said I should ask you about them. And I'm saying no. Have a nice night, Hedwig. She closed the door firmly. I wonder why so secretive. It is rather a pity she's not coming. She can be quite fun with enough wine in her. Anyway, in here. Ooh, finally we are inside the Misericorde. Katherine opened the door to the Misericorde and held it open for me. ushering me in as if she was a decan on a gangway. Inside the room was a round table, rather different from the one in the rectory. It was clearly quite old. It was full of pockmarks and dents. Some parts of it were shiny, but others were quite dull. Various mismatched chairs were haphazardly placed around the table, as well as a couple next to a fireplace at the far end of the room. There were no windows currently. Light was being provided by the hearth, as well as a large candelabra in the corner nearest to the door. Well, here we are. Hello, Hedwig. Hello, dear. Welcome, welcome. There were two other figures I could see tending to the fire. The smaller one on the left I deduced was Flora. The one on the right, unfortunately... Angela? Seriously? I didn't think she would be in here. Angela. Goodness, it's been a while since I've seen you in here. Yes, well... Some of us has better things to do than spend every possible night reveling. Oh good, we're getting prickly before any drinks have been poured. This should be fun. Give it a rest, you two. Surely you can be nice to each other for one night? Of course. We wouldn't want to leave Hedwig with the wrong impression, would we? I agree. We can't leave her without recognizing what a shrew you can be. Katherine. What? I was agreeing with dear sister Angela. Can we at least declare a temporary truce? For Hedwig's sake? I am willing. Why are you even here? Now you're just being childish. No, just curious. Are you intending to spoil things for the newcomer? Am I spoiling things currently? Oh, here we go. You're very good at this game. Oh hell! I jumped. It barely registered with me at first that this exasperated growl had come from Sister Charity. You're both as bad as each other. Stuff it for one night. You can bicker on your own time, but me and everyone else are here to have a nice, relaxing evening. And you're bloody well not going to ruin it. Sit down. Shut your gops. Drink and make merry. Or else! Everyone is silenced. Oh, even Adela. And Flora too. It's lovely to see you here, Hedwig. But I think that just kind of shows how much respect people have to Charity. I smiled. I wasn't as rattled as I probably should have been. Maybe it was Darcy's concoction. Maybe it was alcohol. Or perhaps seeing Katherine and Angela at each other's throats had awoken a slightly unsavory sense of curiosity within me. I'm happy to be here. That's good. This'll be fun. Right, Katherine? That's right. I must admit, even with my newfound courage and despite how amusing it was watching her spar with Katherine, Angela's presence made me slightly uneasy. Since only half of the sisters could occupy the Misericorde, I had been hoping, perhaps assuming, given her personality, that the odds of missing her were in my favor. Me too. Alas, alas. Marta and I brought up some of the good wine earlier, and I believe Darcy is cooking something especially for the meal. The meal we just ate. It'll be a bit later on. Besides, you'll want some. I should resist, but the color red meat is too strong. I opened my mouth to protest. The rule of Saint Benedict straightly prohibited red meat. Before I remembered that in this room the rule had no say. A touch courteous, if I must say so myself. The rule states that nothing should be preferred over the Holy Office, the works we did, and the hours we observed. And yet here this place was, offering a sanctuary for everyone to do nothing but prefer worldly things. At this point, I had lost count of all the infractions this abbey had made on a rule of Saint Benedict. Poor Darcy, she's really busy, isn't she? I think Eustace or Moira is helping tonight. And it's a bit less complicated than supper. It's just meat and heat, more or less, isn't it? I'm sure there is an art to it, as there is to all things. Wise, as always. Charity then ushered me to sit down at the table. There were several mugs and a very large wineskin resting in the middle of the table. There was also a full cask next to the table on the floor that I had not noticed previously. It was a little smaller than the fat barrels I had seen stacked in the cellar, but nevertheless, that's a lot of wine. And thank God for that. You have plenty of us here to help finish it, don't you worry. Yes, don't feel like you need to drink it all. I'll have what she doesn't have. You are going to watch yourself. I won't hear the end of it from the superior if you lose your... H? If you go on our bender. H? What is the word? What could a word possibly be? Margaret patted Charity on the shoulder and then took a seat. I could see a shelf in the corner of the room near the fireplace. It was rather unkempt and loaded with various mismatched objects. I could see books of different sizes stacked haphazardly atop each other, little chess pieces and a lute fighting for space. There were bits of fabric and what looked like a full robe stuffed in between these bits and bobs as well. So, are there any plans for the evening? I hope not. A little bit of everything, dear. But most importantly, a lot of nothing. That's the idea anyway. I see. Had done a lot of nothing by myself in my cell. I missed it dearly, but I was curious what these women found so exciting about it. That's the best bit of any holiday, isn't it? Doing nothing. You're not wrong, dear Flora, but don't tell the superior I said so. Katherine picked up the wineskin and began depositing drinks into the cups. Now, make sure your elders get some before it's gone. I wouldn't dream of depriving you, Charity. Katherine handed her the next mug. That's right. Catherine's always grateful not to be the eldest in a room. It would be wild if Angela and Katherine actually has some shared history in the past. Like, long ago. Maybe even before they have met each other. No, even before they've been in the Abbey. That was actually quite good. I was merely surprised that Angela was able to come up with something so witty. Pour me one next. I get the feeling I'm going to need it. Just a small one for me to start, I think. Nonsense. She handed me a full mug. So, are you going in strict order of age? She must be. I haven't gotten a drink yet. Hedwig is younger than I am, so no. Bold of you to admit. Not as biting the second time. Charity got hers first because she is our beloved and respected elder. Margaret got second since she asked so nicely. Hedwig was next because she is a new guest and would have been second if Margaret hadn't requested so forcefully. Sorry, Hedwig. No offense taken. Next, I don't know. Why not Adela? There you are. I, very graciously, will go last, as I am pouring the drinks. Which leaves Flora and Angela, which, let's see. I will give Flora hers first to prove once and for all that I am not discriminating against her youth. Oh, that is very diplomatic of her. I only hope that Angela will accept this decision and not see it as a slight against her. Diplomatic is probably the wrong word to describe Katherine, but she is pushing the buttons very carefully, is how I'll say it. I assure her there is no such ulterior motive. Can you just give us the fucking wine? Flora. Language! She finished pouring the drinks and passed them to Flora and Angela, neither of whom looked particularly amused. Margaret was thoroughly enjoying herself, though. Thank you. Indeed. Now, Hedwig, tell us what you think of this wine. It's a fair bit nicer than the stuff we typically have throughout the day. It has real flavor. I guess I kind of forgot, but I don't know. Back in the medieval times, this is 1500s, is it not? 1500s? Would they be drinking water or would they be having wine, since water is probably not very clean in that time period? I kind of forgot. My history knowledge is kind of lacking in this area. But I guess that's what they are referring to. I took a tentative sip and was surprised to find that I recognized the taste instantly. Oh, I've had this one before actually. Ow. Oh dear. I couldn't say, actually. But I'm sure someone must have brought it to me with a meal at some point. Perhaps on Christmas? What kind of drink is it? Oh yes. That sounds like something Katherine II might do. She knew her wines, that one. She knew more about it than most here do, yes. Are you and Marta still fighting about the cherry? Sherry, sorry. I came here to do a job. I have nothing against Sister Marta, but I wish she would let me do it. I know. I can't do anything about that, though. Adela huffed and nodded, sipping her drink. This is good. Not as good as I could help make, but it is very good. What's different about sherry, Sister Adela? Don't get her started. It is a better fermentation process. The end product is sweeter. That's hard to believe, given what I tasted. I mean, I do believe you, just, it should not be tasted halfway through being made. Does the painter show their client their work before they have painted a face? Does the chef deliver a half-cooked meal? She's got a point. Of course, I'm more just impressed. I was asked to come here and help shepherd a batch of sherry. The first one was a complete disaster because instructions were not followed. Now I am trying to correct this with the second batch, and I am facing the same resistance. Marta is very protective of her work. I think she does not like me. I think she does not want some Iberian dirtying up her project. Really? I didn't actually sense that coming from her. But I guess... She stuck her finger into her drink and violently wiggled it around to emphasize her point. I had to duck to dodge flecks of wine. I promise you it isn't as bad as all that. She's just... I think it might be exactly as bad as that. She has no other reason to get in my way. She treats me like a child too. It might just be an age thing. I very much doubt it. She does not see me as Spanish. Margaret, Marta doesn't treat you any differently than anyone else, does she? Does she? Oh, crumbs. No, it's fine. It's just that if I say no, that might not actually indicate what you're hoping it does. Charity looked as if she was trying to decode a particularly difficult puzzle. Margaret smiled, perhaps humorlessly, and sipped a drink. Have you seen any more ghosts, Hedwig? Ghosts? Oh no, I have not. I feel like ghost talk around here has dropped significantly recently. Hedwig's goat-hating swordsman excluded, of course. Thank goodness for that. It's all rubbish. Oh, I don't know about that. You don't get to be my age without seeing a few queer things here and there. I've seen some ghosts. There is at least one on this floor alone, I reckon. Yes, I have heard them too. It's a shame Darcy isn't here. She always has plenty to say on this subject. Well, you can ask her when she brings the beef. Perhaps out in the hall, where the rest of us won't be subject to such nonsense. I seem to recall somebody asking for an escort to the privy at night just in case she encountered something. That's just common wisdom. What's happening between the two of them? That has nothing to do with spirits or fairies or any such fantasy. There are bears or strange men. Strange men? Bears? That's what you call them, Flora? Yes, bears. There are bears around here? No. Absolutely not. Not that I ever seen. I've seen a bear up close once, but that was before I ended up here. I have two. They are very cute, but quite dangerous. At any rate, there are no bears anywhere near here. They don't live in England. Do they not? Do they not have bears in England? Or Scotland? Or Ireland? Really? I cannot believe I am being treated like a fool for worrying about bears while you are all entertaining the notion of ghosts wandering our halls. Well, if they don't live here... Not naturally, of course, but kings and nobles and other rich men keep them for sport. They import them from Bohemia. So you think some nobleman is going to sick a bear on you while you're on your way to the toilet? Now that is not so much a far-fetched idea. You are trying far too hard to make me sound hysterical. Bears are strong and crafty creatures. One could easily slip loose and escape into the woods. It only takes two to proliferate. You cannot tell me this has not happened. There was nothing but silence for a moment. Then, suddenly, everyone erupted with laughter. Bears? Proliferating? Watch out. And they cannot stand women pissing at night. Grow up. You must admit, Angela, it sounds a bit... ridiculous. Far-fetched at the least. It is nonsense, Angela. I am surprised. I had no idea you were worried about this. Well, I apologize for not wanting to risk being torn in half by a vicious beast or violated by some murderous cur at night. After all, only half of these things have happened here, so why worry about either? Oh no, bring up what happened to Katherine. Everyone is silent. Angela, not in here. No, I think there's no better place to talk about it. The silence came back. This time, it felt like the very air had been sucked out of the already stuffy room. Everyone was looking in different directions. I could hear heavy, deep breaths. Time for meat! Adela stood up first and strode over to the door, unlatching it and holding it open so that Darcy could lumber in carrying a massive platter of food. Sounds amazing, but nice timing, Darcy. Everyone sort of shuffled awkwardly to move the cups and wineskin out of the way. Darcy plunked the platter down and dusted her hands off with a satisfied expression on her face. You have beef and lamb and a bit of pork here. Put it in a special sauce and cooked to perfection over a roaring fire by yours truly. Why is everybody so glum? We're just hungry, Darcy. Thank you. Darcy's nigh-impervious smile flickered just a little. Alright then. Well, enjoy. Darcy's not gonna stay? Aren't you gonna have some? Oh, I'm not allowed. Not outside of the Misericorde, no, but you're here now. Even seeing Darcy's mouth twitch was heartbreaking enough that I felt compelled to do whatever I could to make her feel better. Luckily, she took to my logic quite well. I suppose I am, aren't I? There are too many people in here. Oh, for Pete's sake, Angela. You go and stand outside while she eats, then. Angela's chair scraped violently against the stone floor. I couldn't help but wince. She can stay. Have a good night, everyone. A touch dramatic, Sister Angela. Hedwig? Yes, Sister Angela? Nothing. Not now. I won't spoil your evening. Oh, that kind of just spoiled my evening. But, okay, to be fair, I think it's good Angela didn't say anything. And, she can always talk to Hedwig tomorrow. With that, she swept herself out of the room. All eyes turned to Darcy, who was blissfully munching on a small piece of meat hanging off a bone. Oh, I couldn't possibly stay, sorry. Busy tonight. She finished her snack and then licked her fingers. Enjoy. Have a good night, Darcy. Indeed. Darcy excused herself from the room. Margaret followed behind her to latch the door shut again and then turned around to face the rest of the sisters. Well. Should one of us flag Eustace down, perhaps? She is also busy tonight. Hedwig and I stopped in on the way here. Moira? Marta? Marta's probably asleep by now. Well, it's one of those two. Or the soup. Could you imagine? Where's Moira at the moment? I believe she is usually in the library or reading in her dorm at this hour. She'll be in her dorm then. Eustace seemed in no mood for visitors. Flora, would you be a dear? I just started eating. I'm only asking you to go down the hall. The food will still be here when you get back. Will it? I've seen you lot eat before. Now. Cheeky little... I'm going. This was certainly not as relaxing as I'd been led to believe. That being said, I was still feeling unsurprisingly confident. I think perhaps I was even finding some relief in the fact that this particular spat had unfolded without me at the center of it. In fact, I was barely involved in the kerfuffle at all. Charity forced a smile. Well, best not to let things get cold. There was a murmur of approval from the others. We all moved our chairs slightly closer to the overflowing platter of sugared meat. I do not understand why Angela is so cruel. I am positive she has gotten worse as well. She's always been an insufferable coxcomb. Must we drag it all out? She's left. No use quarreling with someone who's not even here. To be fair, Charity, Hedwig is here because Angela overheard you two grousing about her. Oh. But this just makes me wonder if Angela was close to Katherine II in any way. Because I think she does care about what happened. Yes, well, that's different. It's not fair if you get to have all the fun. Well, I was under the impression that Angela wanted to come tonight to apologize to Hedwig for her behavior. That does seem a bit far-fetched. No, it's true. I apologized to her for my outburst, and she agreed to apologize to Hedwig for her roughness. Is that true, Sister Charity? This did stretch credulity, but I was curious. Angela's barbed words had wrapped around me so tightly, even the slightest bit of slack was a relief. Of course, on condition that you also apologized, I think. A fresh start for all of us. I have nothing to apologize to that woman for. Well, not a thing. Well, if she wants an apology, I'm obliged to hear what she has to say and do my best to make amends. Catherine's upper lip curled harder than I ever seen it curl before. She will hang whatever complaint she has over your head for the rest of your life, apology or no. Believe me, I've been there. Really suggesting some history. Really? Oh yes. I've done that song and dance for her. She just enjoys watching people squirm. How cruel. She wasn't always like this. I do not care. It's true though. It's a shame. What happened? If I knew, things might look a little different. It has certainly gotten worse since Katherine II passed on. That's true for all of us. And she got along with Angela worse than I do, oh my. This was difficult to imagine, but it was very interesting indeed. Why is that? It's actually a bit funny. I remember them getting along very well, to be honest. They were friendly at one point, but I mostly remember them clashing. So Hedwig, I'd mentioned to you before that Katherine II loved foisting projects and hobbies on us. I remember. Well, for a while it was... What happened? Should we say this? For a while, it was body literature. What does that mean? Body... what? Fay blow? You mean love poems? Romantic writing? No, well, perhaps. Have you really never read any? I'm afraid I had nothing quite so... ribald in my cell. They can certainly be romantic, although I think they are more concerned with fruits of romance? Fruits of romance? A particular part of romance. Oh, the intercourse. The fucking. I nearly choked on a bit of lamb I was eating. You were all reading that sort of thing here? Oh dear. Her wheels are coming off. It's really quite common for monks to write this sort of thing. Really? Are you sure? It helps ease tensions, I suppose. And Katherine the second thought, why not us? It might be a healthy exercise. For what purpose? For the fun of it. Purely for the thrill. God knows we're not allowed to have any fun here. That's not true. Not that kind. Hedwig dearie, it really is not that strange. After a few more weeks here, you'll probably realize just how little there is to do. It was something new and entertaining the girls were interested in. I understand. But, Orny... Yes, we've studied a bit of the Bible here and there, actually. Sorry, I just don't see how writing that sort of thing is appropriate for women of our station. The sisters all looked at each other with slightly concerned expressions. The confidence I had brought into the room was rapidly draining. I felt like I had accidentally cast myself as an outsider to be scorned once again. Well, we endeavored to keep most of it in here. It is the Misericorde after all. We're eating red meat. The rule of Saint Benedict might wane in here, but this sounds more like purely biblical instructions being broken. Hedwig, the gentlest and most pious monk I ever had the pleasure of working with, years and years ago, used to write beer recipes in the margins of his Bibles. And I remember meeting him for the first time delivering food to a village that had come down with the plague. He told me the most outrageous jokes I had ever heard in my life, and I could hardly walk from laughing. All while risking ourselves to help the diseased and dying. Do we deserve hell for a few body japes? Well, this was not an argument worth having. It depends on the jokes, I would think. Everyone else laughed. I was stunned by Katherine's ability to say the exact words I wanted to say with the exact opposite meaning. Tell us one. Yes, go on. Well, alright. As long as Hedwig is quite alright with it. I smiled meaninglessly. I felt like a bear showing off my teeth. Please, don't hold back on my account. A trial by fire for dear Hedwig. Very well, here it is. He told me about a nun he had worked with before who had been a midwife, much like myself. Before she joined her convent, she had been assisting her lady with a particularly tough birth. The poor thing just could not get out. The midwife took a look between her lady's legs and the lady said, "Oh, what if it comes out of the other hole?" I forgot which road my husband took. Oh, goodness. The others erupted in raucous laughter. Katherine was practically doubled over. I don't get it. Think about it. What do roads have to do with it? Babes typically come out of the, Yes, that much I know, thank you. I actually wasn't sure you would, so that's a relief. Is that in the Bible? I am capable of a fair amount of deduction on my own. I may have spent a long time in a cell, but I'm not a complete fool. That's fair. So you know a rough outline of how it all works. Yes, no she does not. Well, there you go then. All the pieces are within your grasp. Oh no. She got there. How does that... Why? Does that work? No, that is the joke. The joke is that her husband was quite stupid and well, or... That's very possible, but that's not the thrust of it, no. Is it a joke? Think harder, Sister Hedwig. I was rescued by the sound of the door swinging open. Found her. Hello, everyone. You lot ate all that while I was gone? There's still plenty of food. What took you so long? Couldn't find her. Sorry for giving you the runaround. I ran into Darcy and was chatting with her, and then I went for a walk in the garden. Could Angela not make it? She got her fill of the attention she wanted. Let's not get back into it. No, I could talk about it all night. That's the problem. Fair enough. Well, now that we're back up to fighting strength, what to do? Should we play a game? I would love to play some chess. Later, I'm not feeling particularly strategic yet. She reached for the wineskin and poured herself a generous refill. I'll get there, I'm sure. Well, since Angela isn't here to complain about them any longer, how about some ghost stories? Ooh, yes please. You like that, Hedwig? Right. While navigating through my personal doldrums for the past few days, I had completely forgotten what my reputation among the sisters currently was. Not only was I a mousy, prudish, trembling little creature, an estimation I could at least agree with, I had stumbled into giving off the impression of a spirit-chasing prankster. It did not suit me. Ooh, I don't know. They give me the shivers. That's the point. Precisely. I will tell you all my story. Oh, must we talk about this? I was hoping we could talk about something a little more fun. Oh, but this is fun. Oh dear. It was just this summer that I decided to take in some fresh air atop the Abbey wall. I wandered through the halls I was not familiar with, trying to find the stairs. All alone in a mysterious portion of this abbey, I found the door I was looking for. Oh! When I saw the tail end of another's rope in front of me. It has to be the same creature, no? I pursued the unknown figure, but when I emerged into the light of day, like I said before, I think Adela is really not afraid. There was not a soul to be seen. Oh, scary. Huh. Fascinating. And this was in broad daylight? Maybe the sun blinded you. This does seem a touch flimsy. I know what I saw. A person. At first the person was there, and then that person was not there. That's a terrible ghost story. Oh, is it? Then perhaps you would like to share a better one? Sure. I've got one. Oh no, that's scary. I hate this. I saw someone outside the Superior's window late at night. Please, just no glowing eyes. That's all, I guess. But why were you in the Superior's office? There was no one else in the room. Just a creepy figure in the bushes. Does it really count as a story? It absolutely does not. No panache whatsoever. Well, I forgot to mention that they had horns. And really scary glowing eyes. She's making things up now. No, please no. Oh, holy shit. Oh no. Why is it so scary? That's a little scarier. She's just making things up now. Maybe build a little suspense first, though. Whatever. I think adding those details just make the story more unbelievable. What were you doing in the Superior's office at night, Flora? Yes, speaking of unbelievable details. The door locks tight. And how would you know that? She got caught. Look, she took my charcoal away because I was scribbling with it during service, okay? Enough. Let me weave you all a tale of true terror. Look out, everyone. She's gonna tell us how old she really is. Flora, be nice. Some of us were saving that exact joke for whenever Charity spoke up next. Now, I'm not too proud to be honest about my age. I'm 65 and quite happy with my station. Oh, that's quite a long life, to be honest, considering the time period. Of course. No, she's lying. She's not 65, is she? Well, I can always wait until Marta tries to tell a ghost story. We have a rough estimate for her, at least. Marta was probably there when the white ship sank. Everyone else guffawed. I'm assuming that's a Bible thing? I might have joined in to be nakedly truthful. But now my tale. I was approaching these very doors late one night. I had been for a nighttime stroll, and the torches had just been lit. The wind was such that they kept flickering. This is really similar to what happened with Hedwig. It was difficult to see, and strange shadows danced across the floor. Suddenly, I realized that one of the shadows in front of me was no shadow at all. Oh, no. And not only that, I swear to you that when I bravely took one step forward... Oh, no, did it come close? Oh, frick, that's scary. It looks ridiculous, but it scared me. I saw the face of Death himself. Well, have I sufficiently rattled you all? Eep. Not bad. Masterful, Sister Katherine. I cannot pretend otherwise. When was this, Katherine? Oh, I don't know the exact date. A month, perhaps 2 months ago? That might have been me. What? Impossible. I do seem to remember running into you in the hall one night when the torches were flickering in the wind like that. If that is true, why didn't you say hello? I tried, but you had already run away. She did not take a step forward. Well, fancy that. That's not... No, I think this was probably a different night. Well, that's the most believable one yet. Aside from mine. You've been a bit quiet, Hedwig. Do you have a good one to share? Oh, no, I don't like that. I don't like that at all. I've just been so captivated by all of yours so far. Hedwig's ghost story is one I won't soon forget, though. She conjures up quite an image. An excellent skill for a chronicler. Too right. It's nothing, really. I hoped none of them had read any of my actual, decidedly sparse writing yet. Well, if Hedwig is passing, Margaret? Hedwig's heard mine. I was helping clean up the kitchen one evening. Darcy had finished up, but there was a pot I wanted to give another good scouring before putting it away. So there I was, all alone in the workshop, when I heard a strange sound. The light had started to fade, and I hadn't thought to bring a candle. The fading light of dusk through the window was all I had. I crept towards where I thought I heard the sound. Oh, I see something there. I don't like it. And saw a pair of eyes. Okay, no, I see a pair of eyes on the top right, but right in the center is... Maybe it's just some shading lighting. Not only that. Oh, so I am right. There was another creature present as well. One with a terrible visage. All I could make out was a hideous maw and some truly evil eyes. Oh, no! Oh, Jesus! Oh, that is scary. Please, no more. Oh. Oh, goodness. I need to collect myself. That's scary. I hightailed it out of there, I have to confess. Goodness. That is an upsetting story. I'm not looking forward to editing this video. In the kitchen, crumbs. I frowned. Margaret had told me a variation of the story in the chapel. It seemed to be gathering some embellishments for this larger audience. What do you think you saw? Well, if I had to hazard a guess, perhaps two demons having a meeting of sorts? A meeting? What about? I don't know. Perhaps they were arguing about who to eat first. Ah, no. How gruesome. Now you're having it on. Maybe. But I did see them. That much is true. The one with the big horrible teeth. That could have been a Barghest. Barghest? It was like a little demon creature? A what? The big dog? That's the one, although dog isn't quite an apt description. It's a truly terrible creatures that haunt old fields and old moors. Always stalking around and hunting people who wander late at night. It's not quite a hound, more of a... I don't rightly know. A mix of a dog and a goblin, perhaps. Like something out of Inferno. Inferno? Inferno? Are we talking about the same Inferno? Like Dante's Inferno? I can only hope that you didn't get a good look at him, Margaret. And why is that? Well, they say if you see him, you're destined to die. Well, all of us are destined to die. That is just ominous. Well, I'm not worried. No? Why is that? Because I made it all up, you daft old bat. My eyebrows had shot straight up, but Charity didn't seem to mind. The whole room erupted with cackling. Oh, the cheek on you lot. That counts as your ghost story, I take it. Of course it does, of course it does. It was very effective. My goodness. I suppose it means it's Moira's turn. Oh, really? Well, I'd have to think. Something often said before believable stories. Look who's talking. I had been waiting for an opportunity to jump into the conversation more actively. I had been worried that my relative's silence was conspicuous. The banter between the sisters had been so acerbic that I thought my contribution would fit right in. Unfortunately, it seemed that I had missed the mark. Huh? Because, yours was really short and... Okay. She may as well have slugged me in a gullet. I look around at the others who seemed to have barely registered our exchange at all. Presumably, they were all opting to remember this embarrassing outburst forever, something to gossip about the way they had about Angela earlier. I was often unsure about who I was, exactly, without the purpose defined by myself. And as an anchoress, I knew exactly what I was meant to do and where I fit into the world. Removed from my cell, I was utterly blind. I tried new attitudes and mimicked behaviors to find something that fit me. But all I could hope to amount to was being someone else's private joke. Aw, Hedwig. I do have a good story to tell, actually. I think it might count. Do tell. Well, one night I was walking past the cloister. I don't like how we are seeing all of this. I'm very scared. And a little bit of gravel worked its way into my shoe. Terrifying. Let the woman finish, Flora. It's no problem, hehe. I stopped to fish the little rock out of my shoe. I leaned against the wall, and when I looked down... No. I realized that there were some odd footprints along the path. Odd? How? Well, they were not human footprints. They were small and pointed. Pointed? Yes, like hooves. Like a goat. I think that person is real. Anyway, the footprints continued away from the cloister. I made to follow them, but then... I saw a strange figure hunched in the doorway. No zoom-ins, please. He turned around and his eyes flashed in the moonlight. No, no, no. Oh, I was so scared about that. I was scared witless and ran all the way up the stairs to my room. Creepy. How strange. Darcy does occasionally bring the sheep out to the cloister to keep the grass short, though. There was only one set of footprints, though. Maybe they walk a single file? Maybe. That's probably it. Don't let the little gremlin get to you, Moira. It was a fine story. I know it wasn't very well gripping, but it was very gripping for me. Very terrifying as well. Well, how delightfully frightful that was. Everyone raised their cups. I followed suit, although I could not keep up with the others when they proceeded to chug the contents of their drinks. Here, here. Katherine, would you mind topping me up? We continued to eat, chat, and drink for a long while. The food was delicious. The wine did a decent job of making me feel warm and pleasant enough to set any worries about my conversational skills aside, too. What was starting to worry me, however, was a matter of how to approach Katherine about James, the stable boy, without raising any suspicions. I would quite like to play a game. No, thank you. Ha, you cheat anyway. Hedwig, I forgot. You know how to play. Oh, against my better judgment, I gambled. I have been learning now that you mention it. The superior has been teaching me. Ooh, has she now? Lucky you. Well, I think it's a way of acclimating me to things outside of the cell. Everyone here talks about chess so much. More than likely, it's her mea culpa for dragging you out there. I tried to remain calm, but I was gripping my seat so hard I could hear my fingers pop. No, it was my decision to leave. Oh. I just felt like it was the right thing to do. The superior explained to me that the abbey was in desperate need of a chronicler, and that this would be much quicker than sending word around the country. So, deep down, you've always wanted out that horrible little cell? It wasn't horrible. I had to correct myself immediately. I had to stick to my story. But yes, I suppose I did. I understand that to most people, lying comes easily. But people do it to stay out of trouble or to make themselves look stronger or wiser or more interesting to each other. It is a sin, but such is the way of this wicked world. But you must understand that when I was an anchoress, I told a single lie. Here in the Misericorde, committed to the superior's conspiracy, every falsehood felt like I was spitting a burr out of my mouth. You were quite a mess when I first saw you in there. Well, I wasn't dressing for an audience then, was I? Everyone chuckled. I was quickly learning that making people laugh was the fastest way to steer them away from topics I didn't want to talk about. Your frock is still a bit big for you, I have to say. I think it looks quite nice. She looks cozy all the time. So, Hedwig. Chess? Go on then. Adela beamed at me and got up to retrieve the chessboard and pieces from the shelf. I do want to learn chess as well. That might be a fun thing to know how to play. The still ample platter of meat was pushed to the side of the table to make space. One of the wineskins came dangerously close to falling to the floor before Katherine caught it. That'd be a waste. 2 rights. Top me up? The board was set up, save for 2 pieces. Adela approached me with her hands balled up in fists and held them out to me. Which hand? Why not just let her go first? Give her the white pieces. She's new here and our guest to boot. Nonsense! This is part of the game. Let's see. Your right hand? Adela opened her right hand to reveal a black pawn nestled in her palm. So I guess we're gonna go... Which one moves first? White? White moves first? So we go second? Black it is. Oh, unlucky. Why is it unlucky? Not at all. Someone must strike first, but that is not necessarily an advantage. When Kerboga struck first at Antioch, he still tasted defeat. Yes, of course. How could any of us forget Kerboga? Oh goodness, what is this? El Dola Kerboga wrote to Antioch with his men after hearing of a Christian siege. Wait, so didn't the Christians go first then? I think we're dividing very specific battles up into individual chess games here. The crux of the matter is that Sister Hedwig will suffer no disadvantage going second. Needless to say, Adela trounced me. I felt confident for a move or two, but it became clear quite quickly that I was out of my depth. Well, I think that was not bad for a beginner. You got her in, 20 moves? That is better than I would expect from a player who only learned what chess is a week or so ago. That's a good point. Hedwig, walk me through your strategy. Well, I don't really know, to tell you the truth. I was mostly just reacting to your moves. Oh, that is bad. I do find that when you're just reacting to how your opponent moves, you always end up getting cornered. The game is completely in their flow, and that is bad. That is bad. Is that so? That'd explain it. Really now. If you are only reacting to me, it is no wonder I won. That would follow, I suppose. I am setting the pace of the whole game. Eventually, you must make your own move. You must force me to react to you. So we just act and react back and forth until somebody wins? I believe that is the game, yes. Katherine. Yes, Hedwig. Because we are not competing to see who can make the single best decision. Chess is not just competing to see who can survive the most moves, but to see whose strategy can adapt and overcome everything your opponent throws at you. Two souls locked in a complicated and deadly dance. Your romance. Though I've heard you say... That's very interesting. Thank you. Hedwig, would you mind if I played around? Watching you has got me in a mood to play. Oh, yes, of course. A fine idea. Rotating chairs. Who can stay in the victor's seat the longest? I can guess. You are welcome to challenge me as well, Sister Flora, if you feel you deserve to dethrone me. Flora rolled her eyes as I got up to offer my seat to Moira. The tight group that had formed around the table to watch Adela and I play scattered somewhat. Margaret walked over to the shelf to peruse the entertainment on offer, and Katherine sat down closer to the fireplace. She brought a wineskin with her and poured herself another cup as soon as she was situated. That's good. It's your chance to go and talk to her now, Hedwig. I craned my neck over Charity's shoulder to try and watch Moira and Adela's game. I found myself surprisingly eager to learn some new tips. However, I was quickly interrupted by Katherine calling from across the room. Hedwig, have a drink with me. Oh, yes. Of course. I pulled up a chair next to her as she poured me a cup of wine. Oh. There we are. This is good stuff. It's very flavorful. It's made here, you know. It's the only reason this wretched place exists. The only reason? Surely that's not true. Abbeys are a source of wine and money. An absolution for people willing to give them money. Believe me, I'm well acquainted with how these places really work. Now that's a backstory. You and I are very similar, if you can believe it. I do apologize if I've ever made you feel lesser than some of the others. Not at all. I was once like you, trapped in a prison cell? Alone and confused in a place very different from what I was used to. Of course, you left your position by choice, but nonetheless, I could not correct her, especially as this topic had nearly bubbled over very recently. but I wanted to, desperately. I, on the other hand, was ripped from a perfectly comfortable life for a variety of unjust reasons. You were forced to become a nun? That's not right. I mean, I would choose no other life for myself, but... My goodness, you really were locked away for a long time. That is quite common, even if my particular circumstances are outstandingly unfair. Was she perhaps a noble? It's a very easy way for a family to get rid of a woman they're not fond of. Oh. I was once the lady of a great house. She is a noble then. Which came, of course, with a certain nasty politics of its own. In that aspect, it was not all that different from living here. There are politics here? Really? The politicking, just the politicking. The clothes, the jewels, the freedom. I would put up with the ghastly parlor games to have all that back. I wasn't sure what politicking at the Abbey she was referring to, but this was no time to get hung up on little details. So what happened? If you don't mind me asking. I stepped on some of the wrong toes in high society. Put some noses out of joint and was accused of some unsavory things I'd rather not repeat. And so I was offered the choice of facing the courts and a likely execution, or taking the vows. I chose the latter. At least I can still grab on to the barest threads of life's greatest pleasure here, occasionally. She took a deep sip of her drink. That just isn't right. A criticism of the church. Goodness, we'll make a sea dog out of you yet. I didn't say that, but if this happens often, it does sound like some people abuse the concept of the monastery. You know, I think shuffling people out of sight might be the concept of the monastery. Come now, that can't be true. Monasteries do wonderful things. They're centers of prayer, research, and rigorous academic study, and we help those in need. It's an important calling. Do we do any of that here? How many people in need do we help, all the way up on this hill? There isn't another village for miles, and the fine folk of Limbara would have to trek up a mountain to get here. Perhaps Limbarator Abbey is more of a monastery for prayer and learning and so on. Ho ho! Present company excluded, of course, but I don't think much earnest prayer emanates from these halls. Nor do I think we are likely to be responsible for any academic or scholarly pursuits of note anytime soon. Katherine II would have argued otherwise, of course. She desperately wanted all of us to have amusing little projects. She was constantly pursuing some sort of greatness, whether for herself or for the whole abbey. What did she want for you? She desperately wanted to get me to act in one of her little performances, a play. She said I had a natural disposition for it. Did you ever take her up on it? Once or twice. I did not hate it, but acting for an audience of just a few other nuns didn't give me much satisfaction. Still, that sounds very sweet. I should have liked to have watched one of these performances. You are too sweet. Too kind. We'll beat that out of you eventually. Oh, that sounds so sad. She chuckled dryly and reached for the wineskin to pour herself another cup. But now that she's gone, the only product of note here is the wine. And when Marta eventually pops it... Grim, I know, but I am just being realistic. Oh, she means Marta dying? That'll be the last of any worth this place had gone. When the wine dries up, so will we. Speaking of... She shook her wineskin and it flopped back and forth unceremoniously. Is that one dead? Goodness, you made me jump. Sorry. I was just coming over to see if you wanted another. Oh, you are positively angelic. Margaret grinned ever so slightly and began pouring out a much fuller-looking wineskin than a deflated lump Katherine was holding. I noticed that Katherine was beginning to look a little rosy in the cheeks. It's the perfect time to ask. I felt dastardly even considering this, but if there was ever time to ask about James... Wonderful. You know, this reminds me. We haven't had a proper wake for Cat. Oh! What? Unbelievable. What happened? Flora was holding a platter of meat and staggering on one leg. She looked surprised that she had managed to catch the food at all. Chess pieces had clattered to the floor all around a pair of players. Adela looked furious. Moira, however, was clearly trying her hardest not to laugh out loud. Katherine, Margaret, and I all hurried over to see what all the fuss was about. I'm so sorry, Adela. But it's true. What on earth did you do? She used underhanded tactics to try and eke out a pathetic victory. Oh, come on now. I was just playing normally. And how's that? She was taking every piece possible, whether it was logical to do so or not. Oh no, here we go. Not another argument about Bloody Maiden's chess again. I wasn't trying to do anything malicious. I just captured a lot of pieces, I suppose. You captured every time it was remotely possible, even if it was not strategically important. Violence for the sake of violence. Total barbarism. Passionless, ugly brutality. Was it really every time it was possible? Yes, do not pretend otherwise. Oh dear. Head on heart, I promise I was not playing by Maiden's rule on purpose. I was just... well... eager? Eager to prove myself. You're very good at chess. I thought that being aggressive would be my best strategy. That could hardly be called a strategy. You and Hedwig played just the same. Well, there's one small difference. I won. Oh! Raucous laughter went up from all of the sisters. All except Adela, who looked like she might need to be physically restrained from leaping onto Moira like one of the bears Angela was so worried about. I demand a rematch. A rematch where we understand we are playing the same game by the same rules. The rules of real chess, not this oafish perversion. If it'll make you happy. We all set to work righting the table and finding all the scattered pieces that had found their way across the room. Any requests? Oh, she's gonna play the lute. Margaret had managed to sneak up behind me as I was bent over picking up a wayward pawn. Gah! Sorry. I stood up and turned around to see her idly strumming a bulbous wooden instrument. I think it's about time for some music. Is there anything you'd like to hear? I bit my lip. I was not sure how to answer this question without sounding icier than I wanted to be at the moment. I was trying to make friends, not alienate anyone more than I already had. Oh, silly question. My apologies. Well, not silly, I appreciate it. Just, you know, they really should have given you an instrument in there. A flute, perhaps. I never felt like I needed one. It might have been fun, though. She had started plucking the strings and bobbing up and down, a slight grin emerging on her lips. She swayed side to side a little, but kept her eyes on me the whole time. Another silly question, but I may as well go for it. You do know what music is, right? Of course I do. I heard it occasionally as a little girl, and there's lots of it mentioned in the Bible. Joyful noise, yes. I'd be curious to know what you remember from before you were interred, though. Well, I vaguely remember one about summer. Summer is Ekumen in? That must be it. That's quite old. That's something Marta would have considered out of fashion. Well, I never claimed to have been a particularly fashionable child. Summer is incuman in Ihude sing cuckoo? Yes, that's the one. It's a fun one. Want to sing it? Oh no, everyone. A little musical accompaniment for this clash of armies, yes? I flushed red as everyone turned to look at us. All of the pieces had returned to the chessboard the sisters were crowded around, save for the pawn I held in my hand. Adela held open her hand and looked at me expectantly. Instinctively, I tossed it. She snatched it out of midair and gave me a little smile as a cheer went up from around the room. Margaret played a single note. Perhaps it was a whine, or perhaps hearing everyone cheer for my expert chess piece throw had gone to my head, but I did not protest. Instead, she sang. She sang! Oh, I'm so proud of you, Hedwig. Groweth sad and bloweth mad. Despite my initial bravery, I could feel myself turning redder and redder. However, once Margaret chimed in, the rest of the room did too. In short order, nearly everyone was singing along as Moira and Adela began their second game. I had no idea if I was anywhere close to the right tune or pitch, but it didn't matter. There was something intoxicating about hearing everyone together, loosely guided by Margaret's lute strings. The song lasted for several chess moves. When the song ended, everyone was clapping and laughing. How merry, how merry! Even Flora looked amused, her usual frown twisted into something like a smile. It's bloody winter, though. All the more reason for a summer tune. Hear, hear! Cups clunked together as everyone toasted. Moira and Adela's game continued at pace. Adela looked like frustration was getting the better of her again. Her moves began to feature loud punctuation. She was practically thrusting her pieces into the board. It also looked like playing with a different set of rules, so as making Moira take things more seriously. She looked thoughtful and took to tenting her fingers under her nose and leaning forward between turns. Even without Moira using her old strategy, the amount of pieces was dwindling fast. Adela was certainly being more aggressive. She had navigated her queen into a domineering position on Moira's side of the board, close to her king. Okay, so the goal of chess is to get rid of the king, hence the checkmate. The queen, from what I understand, is probably the most flexible piece, but in any case, the king is the most important piece. I think I have you. No. Moira slid her own queen further up the board to the side. That is of no help to you. Only a handful of pawns remained on either side, save for each side's king and queen. Adela, however, seemed to be primed to deal a fatal blow. Moira had elected to move her queen further into the right-hand side of the board, presumably to pin Adela's king from afar. But it appeared as though she had moved the critical piece dangerously close to one of Adela's pawns. I think it might be. You have left your queen completely open to me. Well, not entirely. You still have to get a pawn in position to take her, which I shall do. She slid the pawn next to Moira's queen with dramatic confidence. Are you even playing anymore? Perhaps I have bored you. No, just, I don't know how to put this. You can't take my queen. What do you mean? Of course I can. No, I don't think so. Moira is secretly the chess prodigy. I'm looking forward to this. Moira carefully lifted her queen up and placed it back down on the board directly diagonal to Adela's own advancing queen. Is she going to take the queen? What? I must ask again. Are you even paying attention? However, a murmur of understanding was passing through the rest of the room. Adela, don't set me up like that. What on earth are you talking about? Are you paying attention? She gestured to the board, pointing at the relative position of her own king and queen and Adela's attacking queen. If you take my queen, my king can't move. I can't rightfully put him in check, can I? Of course not. Wait. Which would result in a stalemate. Is that correct? So perhaps we can agree to a draw? Hehe. Of all the dirty tricks, Sister Moira, I am shocked. It wasn't a trick. Or rather, it's not like this was my plan, but you were playing really well. This was the only defense I could conjure up. Moira might as well have been pissing on Adela's food right in front of her, the way Adela was glaring at her. So, draw? Yes, it is a draw. Another cheer went up around the room as Adela begrudgingly shook Moira's hand over the chessboard. I suppose that means both seats are open? Yes, I suppose so. She stood up sulkily and made off for the wineskin that Katherine had left on her chair by the fireplace. Moira vacated her seat too, looking sheepish. Anyone want to take me on? Oh, go on then. I was starting to get a little worried that I would never get a chance to corner Katherine, although at the very least, her drinking was not slowing down. As long as I could get to her, I was certain I could get what I needed. The issue at this point seemed to be getting to her at all. Margaret was pacing around the room, strumming a pleasant tune on her lute. I could see Flora reaching for a book on the corner shelf. However, when she brought it to a chair by the fireplace, she held it over her knee rather than open it to read. Why? Margaret. With a wicked grin, Flora began to beat the book with her palms. A driving rhythm was created. Oh! It's like a makeshift little band. It was one that Margaret clearly knew, as she immediately returned with a lute melody that fit snugly between Flora's makeshift drum beats. Ooh! Moira ran over the shelf and retrieved a small wooden flute. As soon as she had an opening, she began to play along with Margaret and Flora. That's so fun! The tune was wild and a little jagged, but it was one everyone in the room seemed to know, save for me, of course. Katherine began swaying back and forth in her seat, and I could see Charity's head moving underneath her hood. Adela, however, was breaking into a full-on dance, jumping and twirling like a mad woman. I must admit I was stymied. Is it stymied? These people were unrecognizable, and I had no idea what to do. There was no way I was going to dance, and I wasn't particularly interested in getting another chess lesson from my betters. To avoid looking foolish, I did the one thing available to me to feel like I belonged in the room. Drink. I was no stranger to wine. I had it with every meal, even when I was still an anchoress. But this was a new experience. Nobody in this room was drinking to quench their thirst. They were all drinking for the sake of drinking, chasing a stupor that was expressly discouraged, if not outright forbidden, by the texts all of them held sacred. What was I to do? I was conscious enough to understand that this was not the time to proselytize. I closed my eyes briefly to pray that my transgressions would be understood. I was here to seek justice for a murdered woman. I was here to clear an innocent man's name. The songs kept going and going. It could have been one long shifting song for all I knew. I didn't recognize any of the tunes this makeshift band was playing, but all of them proved popular with the room. I found myself swaying along with the music without thinking. Adela made her way over to me and... Oh, I suppose the best description I can master is that she began dancing at me. She got very close to my face. She bumped her hips against mine, almost knocking me over. I held my drink with both hands and held it in front of me like a shield. I had no idea how to dance alone, let alone with a partner. I don't know how to dance. It is easy. You just need to move. I am moving. We were both shouting over the music. Adela laughed and retreated away while still shaking to the beat of Flora's book drum. At the other end of the room, she beckoned to me. I relented, scooting forward, and I honestly can't describe what I did with my legs. I just sort of moved them, kicked them, perhaps? I would rather not dwell on it. Suffice to say, it was enough to pass for dancing, but not good enough to keep Adela and the band members from giggling at me. These are nice memories. Oh, that sounds kind of odd, like foreshadowing. I hope I'm not boring you. Hedwig seems to look at it fondly. Alright, I'm gonna end here for today. We got to see a lot of fun dancing from Adela. We got to see what goes on in the Misericorde, which we never did before, and I think it's a very fun thing to know that everyone is living their own life, and of course, finding out that Katherine is some noble woman is kind of a shock to me, but that's kind of what Angela was talking about. We ought to find out what Katherine knows about the situation, but we have not gotten there yet. I actually don't have much to say. I don't have much to say this episode. It's long. It's kind of long. Yes, I haven't really found anything to work any theories with yet. I think it's still a bit early on in the story. We kind of have a bit of hints and clues here and there, but still nothing too much to work with. Some interesting details that I'm not sure will be important later on, but still something that I keep in mind. So I'm looking forward to coming up with any theories for Misericorde, but only after volume 1. And of course, until after I finish the entire Misericorde story. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!